Welcome to a journey through the mysterious world of witches. This playlist explores the rich history of witchcraft, from ancient myths and legends to the infamous witch hunts and modern spiritual practices. Discover the stories, rituals, and enduring influence of witches throughout the ages. Light a candle and dive into the enchanting and often misunderstood history of witches. The Witch of Midnight Brew Cafe. In a small, quiet town nested between the dark forest and the town square, there was a little coffee shop called Moonlight Brews. It was a cozy place by day, filled with the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and the chatter of locals. But by night, when the moon rose high and silver in the sky, the atmosphere changed. The warm glow of the lamps dimmed, and shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should. The barista, Helen, was a mysterious woman. She was beautiful, but in an unsettling way. Her pale skin seemed almost translucent. Her dark eyes shimmered with something unearthly, and her long black hair cascaded down like a veil of night. She had an unusual talent for knowing exactly what each customer wanted before they even spoke. Regardless, whispers, rumors that Helen was no ordinary barista. They believed she was a witch. One stormy night, a traveler named Alex stumbled into Moonlight Brews, drenched and shivering. The storm outside was relentless, with lightning flashing and thunders roaring as if the heavens were tearing apart. Desperate for warmth, Alex ordered a cup of coffee. Helen smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and began to brew the coffee with ease. The smell of the coffee was intoxicating, richer and darker than anything Alex had ever experienced. As Helen handed over the cup, she whispered, "Be careful what you wish for." The words sent shivers down Alex's spine, but he brushed it off as nothing more than the wind howling through the cracks of the windows. He took a sip. The coffee was perfect, almost too perfect. It was as if every drop was crafted specifically for him, warm and comforting, yet a depth that was both inviting and terrifying. As Alex drank, he began to feel strange. A heavy drowsiness crept over him, and his vision blurred. He woke up in darkness. The shop was closed, the chairs stacked on tables, and the lights off. But he wasn't alone. Helen stood behind the counter, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She didn't look like the friendly barista anymore. Her features were sharper, more sinister, and her smile twisted into something malevolent. "You wished for warmth on a cold night," Helen said, her voice echoing in the silence, "but warmth comes at a price." Alex tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. Panic set in as he realized he was paralyzed. Helen began to chant softly, words that twisted in the air like smoke. Shadows gathered around her, swirling and turning into grotesque shapes, creatures born of nightmares. "You see," Helen continued, "every soul that drinks my brew pays a part of themselves. It's how I stay alive, how I stay young. You're not the first, and you won't be the last." As the shadows closed in, Alex's mind raced, trying to comprehend the horror of his situation. He could feel his strength draining, his consciousness slipping away as the creatures began to feast on his fear. Helen's laughter filled the room, cold and heartless. As Alex's vision faded into darkness, the last thing he saw was her eyes glowing with a malevolent light before everything went black. The next morning, Moonlight Brews opened as usual. Helen greeted the first customer with a warm smile, just as she always did. But if you looked closely, you might notice a new shadow in the corner, flickering in the dim light, a shadow that wasn't there before, one that moved when it shouldn't. And if you ever find yourself in Moonlit Brews on a stormy night, be careful what you wish for, because the witch of the Midnight Brew is always watching, waiting for her next soul to claim. Thank you for tuning into this history and stories of witches. Until next time, stay tuned for more interesting history and stories. This was Sandra Pink.